Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for iChess.net. Welcome to this new chapter where we'll be analyzing a game, and usually we don't analyze complete games. However, this game, Hansen against Smith deserves to be fully analyzed. And of course you'll find whatever we see on this video, you'll find this on the BGN files as well. So let's see some evaluation and strategy. The opening, we're going to skip it because we want to focus on the middle game, the decision making, but of course I'll comment a little bit as I usually do in the opening as well. We got the French, white plays the Tarrasch variation, black plays a6, which is a soft line, which, by the way, I covered on the iChess Club videos. You can find those on the iChess Club, and I talk about this a6 move for black. The idea basically is to wait till white plays the move knight to f3, and then white won't have the chance to play f4. In short, if black plays the main line, something like knight f6, we can play e5, knight to d7, and now white, apart from playing natural moves, white can also consider playing f4. That is the reason why black plays a move like a6, waiting till white plays knight to f3, and then black can play knight f6, e5, knight fd7, and as you can see, white does not have the chance to play f4. So, with that said, this is how the game was. White played the main line, knight f3, knight f6, e5, knight fd7. And here, for those who play e4, and for those who play the French, you probably know what a pawn on e5 means. This means white has more space. As you can see, black has no defender on the king side. The fact there's no knight f6 means we can potentially attack on the king side, we can bring pieces there. So after knight fd7, white played the move bishop to d3. The fact we got a pawn on e5 and another pawn on d4, the fact we got more space, does not mean this is easier to play for white. We also have to be careful as white because black has a lot of ways to put pressure in our center, c5, f6. So, as I was saying, we need to be careful. Bishop d3. Black plays the move c5. We play c3, of course, we want to keep a healthy pawn chain. Now, if he takes on d4, we are ready to retake with the c3 pawn, and then the pawn on e5 is well protected. So, black plays the move knight to c6. And now, a deep move by white, bishop to c2. This move is not the first move we think of. In fact, if I didn't know this position, I wouldn't think about bishop c2. I would just castle, which, by the way, is the main line. White can castle, and usually black, apart from playing bishop e7 or b5, this arrow, sorry, b5, not b4, black can also play a move like this. And here we have a tricky variation of this French, this Tarrasch French, where black attacks too much on the king side. Usually black plays with the king in the center, and he's likely to win a pawn as well. It's not easy for us to hold our pawn on d4, and if we take on c5, then not only he can take on c5, he can take on e5 next. And this move is always there. So after this, we can try something like this as white, but then we're just adding more reasons. I mean, we're giving black extra reasons to attack on the king side, so the approach, as you'll find on the iChess Club, by the way, the approach for white here is to just give the pawn, play down a pawn, but In return, white is going to have a lot of counterplay, a lot of initiative, and black has the king in the center. As I like saying in my videos, material is not as relevant as the initiative. So if I were white, I wouldn't mind playing this. Now, well, you can play this move. Now, bishop c2 or knight b3, both moves are possible, but again, if I lose the pawn, that's fine. As white, what I'm trying to get is initiative. And that's exactly what I'm getting here, with a lot of development, and black's king is still in the middle of the board. So, bishop c2 is not the main line, as I was saying, but I really like what white is trying to do. What white wants to play is the move knight b3. Of course, knight b3 now is not good, because black can simply play c4 and thus winning a piece. So that's one of the main reasons why white plays bishop c2. Now, let us say black plays, well, in the game black took on d4. Let us say black plays something like bishop e7. Well, we can castle as white, of course. We can castle. We can use a plan white uses in the Spanish as well, driving our pieces to the king side. That makes a lot of sense because, as I said before, there's no defender there on f6, so we can try this. But coming back to this knight b3 plan, what we are trying to do is we are inviting black to play c4, which at first glance it looks like a great move for black because it wins space, but this actually kills black's chances of counterplay on the queen side. So now we can happily go back to d2. We no longer need to worry too much about this. Our pawn structure is great. I mean, he can play b5 and b4, but that's going to take a while, and he has no development. And again, with the closed center, we can just attack freely on the king side. Let us say he plays... I'm just playing natural moves. So I was saying we can play this. Another plan I would consider here is somehow, if I can bring the queen here, that would be ideal. Or queen d2, queen f4, and queen here. And again, the fact he's got no space on the king side gives us a big advantage. So, be careful when you play a pawn move. Think twice about it, because that's something I learned after years of experience. Once you move a pawn, there's no going back. I know it sounds too obvious, but that's the way it is. And most of the mistakes we make in our games are pawn moves. Here c4, I mean, it's just helping white. The fact black no longer has the chance to take on d4 is helping white. If, in a position like this after knight b3, if black leaves the pawn on c5 or plays something like b6, well, there's always a chance that position is open, and there's always a chance black finds counterplay, even if black takes on d4. This is still better for white, but at least there's the c-file, the b4 square, so black has something. Again, playing a move like c4, which is like the move we should play, or we would play in blitz. Think about it before playing a move like this too soon. That's my advice, and of course the same goes for white. In a position like this, when the center is volatile, as we see here, we shouldn't play crazy moves like this as white. Unless we have a huge reason to do so, we shouldn't play something like h4. Because again, pawns, they don't go back. If we play h4, h5, our king is here. Eventually in an endgame, that the pawn on h5 is going to be a weakness. And again, we can regret this long term. That pawn on h5 can be easily taken in the endgame. So I think this concept goes for any position. Be careful when it comes to moving pawns. So now, okay, let's go back to the game. White played bishop c2. And black, as I was saying, careful about moving pawns. Black takes on d4 in this position. I wouldn't take on d4 yet, because, I mean, if we analyze this from black's point of view, we can tell white is not taking on c5 yet, because then white would lose the pawn on e5, which is way more important than c5. So this is not a threat yet. And that means c takes d4. It's not binding yet. There's no rush to play it. So if I were black, I would play something useful as bishop e7. So c takes d4 is a mistake, in my opinion. Just too soon. White takes with the pawn, obviously. And now black plays the move a5. Again, I cannot help but repeat what I said before. Careful about pawn moves. a5, clearly black wants to gain space on the queen side, but I think here it is more relevant to finish development. Bishop e7, castling kingside, perhaps queen b6, or knight b6 and bishop d7. This might be still better for white, but black is improving its pieces. There's not much black can do here other than playing natural moves. And despite having less space, it is fair to say black has a solid foundation as well. So knight b6, bishop d7, rook c8, getting the pieces out, that's probably the best approach. Another mistake in this position for black would be playing something like knight b4. I know it looks good, but white can even ignore the threat. But if we really want to keep the bishop there, we can play bishop d1, and eventually we'll kick that knight back. So aggressive moves like this are good when you have a proper development. So, as I was saying, knight b6, bishop d7, rook c8. If black gets all of its pieces out, then knight b4 is going to be powerful, because black has a lot of development. If black plays knight b4 right now, it's not going to do much. Attacking with no development is not going to work. If you do that, in out of 100 games, it might work in 5 games, but in the long run, that approach is not going to work. So, black plays a5. As I was saying, he's trying to get some space on the queen side. Black might try something like this, trying to fix the problem black usually has in the French and other defenses as well. Bishop c8 is a bad bishop, so black wants to play b6, bishop a6. It's trying to improve this bad bishop on c8. But after a5, we'll see black also creates potential weaknesses. White castles. Now black plays the move bishop to e7. And here, we're going to stop the video now. In fact, we're going to finish this part 1 of this video in this position. Take your time as white and find a long-term plan. This is not like a puzzle where you need to find tactics. Just pretend this is a real game and you need to find the best move for white. And if you can find a long-term plan, that is even better. Then compare your analysis with the next chapter. So that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to finish it up now, and I'll see you guys in my next chapter. Thank you. Okay, so we continue analyzing part 2 of the game Hansen against Smichdil, and we got this position, and we have to find the best move or the best long-term plan for white. So Of course, the first thing we think of is to move knight d2 somewhere, but we have some issues if we play a move like knight b3. All of a sudden, black's a5 makes a lot of sense. You can play a move like a4, we have to move the knight back. But if we don't move the knight, then we won't be able to develop our bishop on c1. So a move like rook e1 also comes to mind, because then we can play knight f1, knight here, and eventually we transfer the knight to h5. And I like this for white. It looks interesting, to say the least. But there are other moves we can consider as well. How about playing a move like knight b1? This move is ideal for white for the following reasons. First, black took on d4, c takes d4, then we took as well. Now the c3 square is available for white. We can just play knight b1 and knight c3. This is a great square for our knight compared to d2. And of course we are also freeing our bishop. So knight b1, don't be afraid to move your pieces back, especially if you are considering a strategic plan. This move is just fine, not to mention we are also playing knight c3, and since he played a5, we got an outpost on b5 as well. These are the moves that take our chess to the next level. So knight b1, here black plays b5. Yes, he has to. If he castles, then we can play knight c3, and then it's going to be tough for black to play something like b5. If he plays b6, still, he has no con to play on the queen side. And again, we got a lot of squares to work on. We can play a3 just to be safe, just to limit black's pieces. But again, b5 and a4 are potential squares we can work on. So black b4, playing this move, plays b5. That's smart because we can gain space on the queen side first and then castling afterwards. So b5, here white plays knight to c3. It's just two moves. Our knight is much better, and also we can transfer the knight to the king side if we want to. And now black plays bishop to a6. Black can also play something like b4, but this reminds me what I said in our first video of this game, where I said that moving pawns too much, advancing pawns too much, cannot be good, or if you do it, just be extra careful, because each pawn move you play, well, it's a weakness, or it is something you're creating in your position. Here, for instance, black is gaining space on the queen side. That looks good, but at the same time, I think here this is helping white improve its pieces. Knight e2 and knight f4, this is something we definitely want to play. Here I can think of another example. If he castles, well, queen d3, this looks very good, but even if I play something like this, and black plays h6 or g6, in both scenarios, he is creating weaknesses around his king. And again, this is why moving pawns is... we have to be extra careful when we do so. I'm not saying we don't have to move our pawns, but just be careful when you do so. Here, for instance, black plays g6. Well, that means we'll have extra possibilities. If he plays something like this, then queen d3 is even stronger, because now g6, I mean black wishes he had a pawn on h7, and of course this plays itself. This is just a checkmating attack for white. So coming back to this position, b5, knight to c3, black played the move bishop a6. Okay, now we can tell b4 is a threat. However, even if it's black's turn right now, and even if he plays b4 right now, we still got knight e2. So white plays the move rook e1. I like it. Just getting out of these diagonals just in case. And also, I can try something like this in future, especially if he castles kingside. Rook lift is always something we can consider. He has no defender on f6, so that gives us the right to attack on the kingside. And now, after rook e1, I think here black plays probably the first mistake in this game. On part 1, we were saying that this was probably a mistake, but that was okay for black. The move black plays now is the real mistake, and black plays h5. I think what we can learn out of this game is the concept I was saying about pawns. This move can't be good. I understand black wants to try an attack on the king side, but what about his king? Where is black going to place the king? Is it going to be queenside? Well, kingside there's no chance he castles kingside now after playing this. So, again, this move is just too risky. And I'm not talking about the move, I'm talking about the whole plan. In chess, we cannot rely on calculating every single move. Sometimes we need to stick to a plan, and that also makes our life easier. For instance, as black, what I would do is, if I feel castling kingside is not safe, then I would think about developing my queenside even further, and then try to pull the trigger there. So rook c8, knight b6. And even if I feel castling kingside is risky, I would probably arrive to that conclusion. I still have to do it because playing with the king on e8 won't be good. I mean, we have exceptions, but in general, in chess, you have to castle. If your opponent has an attack, well, so be it. We can also try defending, but playing with the king on e8, unless it's a super close position, I wouldn't do it. So, rook e1, again, that mistake here by black is a concept mistake, not the move itself. It's probably interesting, depending on that position, but here the approach is not good. And now we need to find a move for white. Clearly, black, he's all in on the king side. He's not going to castle there. He's going to try playing something like this. So, as white, we can play a simple move like bishop e3. We can still carry on with our development. But I think that gives black some time to do what he wants to do. Stopping this move, I don't think we can. Maybe h4, but then he just takes the pawn. So, what should we do here? Well, he just played a wild move like h5, not developing at all. Let us open up that position. Let's create counterplay, probably on both sides of the board. That's why I like a4. I really like this move. We need to start creating action on the queen side as soon as possible. Why I say queen side? Well, because he's the one who's going to create action on the king side. He's gonna do the job for us by playing these moves. So a4, black plays b4. I like it. I mean, he has to keep that position closed. If he takes, then we can just take. And the more we open that position, the better it is going to be for white. And now we can tell he's not going to castle kingside and he's not going to castle queenside. So black is interested in keeping that position closed so he can fire on the king side. So b4, knight b5. Again, this is an easy move for us. Even if we lose a pawn somehow, we are interested in opening up diagonals and files for our rooks. Diagonals for our bishops, of course. The key is his king is there, so we don't mind losing a couple of pawns. In fact, we would love to lose some pawns for the sake of opening that position up. And again, that move, h5, black is going to regret playing this move. the only way something like this could work for black is if that position is extremely closed and white has no counterplay. But as long as we can create this counterplay, then we're much, much better. Now black, as the say goes, a mistake is usually followed by another one, takes on b5. I think this is another mistake. Knight b6 was probably an alternative. Now I can play bishop d3. I really like this move. b3, just in case. Although I don't think knight c4 was a threat, but again, as white, I continue developing my pieces, and black is lacking coordination. At some point, he has to do something about his king. He cannot stay on e8 forever, and if he castles, then we can just try attacking on the king side ourselves. So, again, we really need to understand why this was wrong by black. The whole approach was wrong. So h5, a4, b4, knight b5, black took the knight, pawn takes, knight to a7, and now white plays a simple bishop d3. We don't really think white is trying to protect the pawn. As I said, if he takes it, then we can even play bishop a4, and we are completely dominating on light squares. What I think is after bishop d3, white wants to put extra pressure on the a file, and again, worst case scenario, even if he takes the b5 pawn, we got a lot of compensation. So black plays queen b6. Clearly he doesn't want to castle kingside. We play queen a4, and now bishop d8. Awful position for black. Bishop is passive. The first rank is not coordinated at all. Black's knights, the knights don't have, I was gonna say doesn't. The knights don't have any outposts to go to, so again, it all comes to piece play, and white is dominating in this area. So after bishop d8, white plays bishop e3. Simple. Another thing is black cannot play this move either. So queen b8. Is there anything else black can play? Maybe rook b8. But again, even if he takes this pawn, the knight does not have a bright future, and it's going to be tough. I mean, once he takes on b5, I'll just play a move like this. Knight takes b5, I can play something like this. It's not easy for black to move the knight. It's under a pin, to say the least, and probably more. So black decides to play queen b8, knight to d2. Now, I mean, black, he should have played the logical follow-up, which is knight b6, and then white can simply play queen b3 or queen d1. I wonder if we can take that pawn on a5, but I wouldn't, because we are giving black a reason to find a tactic. But still, knight b6 was the best move for black. What black played is this move. And, I mean, if black had the pawn on h7, then that position is okay, probably equal. Maybe white is a bit better, but it's nothing too serious for black. But since this move was played before, this is easy to punish. And again, I think that the big lesson we learn out of this chapter is be careful when you move your pawns. Now, after this, white, he can play on the queen side and try increasing the advantage there, but a simple move like queen d1 gives us a decisive advantage. We target h5, black has to play this move, and from this position onwards, let's just see how white won this, because I think this is a model to see how to attack on the king side and how to exploit our opponent's weaknesses. So, After g6, first of all, white plays this move. We got others as well, but this wins the tempo, attacking the rook and preparing the rook lift. Now, we got more pieces targeting g6 or even h5. Black has to play the move knight f8. We play this move, queen takes, h5 is a threat, and now black... I'm sure black didn't want to play this move, but black has to play it. Well, king here doesn't even help, because our bishop is still there. We can just play queen takes, h5, winning on the spot. The same goes for king h8. This looks smart, but even here, we can try a sacrifice. We have to double check this because, okay, pawn takes, bishop g7, check, king here. Well, if we move the bishop with that discovered check, he's gonna have knight g6. So, it's not working yet, but we always have to consider sacrifices on h5. Of course, it's much easier than this. There's no need to sacrifice the queen yet. We can play queen f3. We can bring more pieces in, even the other rook if necessary, or the knight. And one day, we're gonna eliminate the knight on f8 and sacrifice on g6. And we can do it whenever we see fit. In the meantime, black has to be on the lookout for all of the possible tactics and threats white has. So, knight f8, rook here, black goes for the active defense, but we can just play rook g4. Black takes the chance to take a pawn, and now white played queen a4. We got other moves as well. It's funny that the rook is also protecting the pawn. Queen e2 looks quite good as well. But now the queen goes back to the queen side. I think the main reason white played this, it's because that rook on e8 is also hanging. So knight c7, only move. Knight to f3. This is complete domination by white, despite being down a pawn. As I said before, our bishop is just too powerful, and black's pieces are lacking activity. So black played queen c8. Now queen c2. We got other moves. We can even collect this pawn, and then, our rook is probably... if he takes, we play rook takes. Yeah, this is just too much. Our bishop is too much. If necessary, we can go back to g4 and then play h4, h5. In the meantime, black cannot create counterplay. So these are the two key lessons of this game. And I think this is a pattern in my videos already. First, the thing about the pawn moves, and second, something I say in most of my videos, material is not as relevant as the initiative. Black here has an extra pawn, but there's nothing he can do with the extra pawn. Nothing he can do with it. So it all comes to activity, and white is simply winning here. Queen c2. I like this move as well. As I was saying, white has other moves, but here I think he's trying to take on f8, and then we got 3 pieces to fire on g6. Queen d7. Now white goes for it. King takes, and bishop takes. No space. We still got that powerful pawn on e5, giving us all the space in the world, and black does not take. Knight a6 is what black plays. Taking, this deserves to be analyzed, but queen takes. We got some checkmate ideas. Queen f7, only move, check. Now king e7, and we get the queen, to say the least. We might have other moves, but before he runs away to the queen side, let's make sure we collect some material, and that's it. So, bishop takes, black played knight a6. Well, now we can easily, move our bishop somewhere, and we basically destroyed the king side for free. But black and white played rook f4, rook e7. That king is trapped there. Knight g5. We keep on bringing our pieces. This is resignable for black already. Rook c8, and now white played queen d2, and black resigns. Even queen e2 is probably worth a try because we attack the knight on a6, and we also target the pawn on f7. I think this move wins as well. So, yeah. I think white played queen d2 just to be safe in case black tries some trick on the c file, some back ranker, but even, queen e2, queen c6, defending the knight and trying something like this. Just to be safe, before taking this pawn, we can play a move like this, and it's game over. This is some prophylaxis, just to be safe. It's not required, but it's better to be safe than, giving our opponent a tiny counterplay. Then we can take on f7, and there's nothing black can do to protect it, so... this game teaches us a lot of things. That's the main reason why I chose it. It was an example for me. The first time I saw this game, I can tell I learned a lot of things. So hopefully you did as well. That's gonna be it for this chapter. I hope you found this useful. I hope you could learn something. And of course, I want to see you guys in my next video. Thank you.